Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Business Insights for 2021 on Monday, the 18th of January. Business Insights is a very exciting webinar series hosted weekly on Mondays at midday by a panel of industry thought leaders for business owners who simply want to be in the know about the latest and most significant news in the Australian business landscape. Our panel of advisors aim to inform, educate, and provide strategic insights to the changes in the economic, legislative, and financial landscape that affect small business. We aim to guide our viewers to navigate business challenges that they're going to experience through COVID-19 and beyond. I should also provide the following general warning that the views and opinions shared on this webinar are designed to be general information only and are not designed to be taken as specific advice for your personal circumstances. However, please feel free to reach out to any of the panel members if you do require specific advice. Let's now meet our panel of industry thought leaders. First up, we have Adam Lyle from BizDoctor. Adam, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Adam. And then we have Lisa Garrido from Enigma HR. Lisa, Happy New Year.
Happy 2021, everybody.
Sam Gureshi from Money Clip. Happy New Year, Sam. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. I'm great to be here back in 2021.
And my name is Ian McLaughlin. I'm from Imperium Accounting and Tax. Now let's start off with Adam from BizDoctor. So Adam, I'm sure you've got a lot to talk about, but what are the major changes and risks for businesses that you can foresee that they're going to experience in 2021?
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, look, I could take the whole seminar today. There's so much going on, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks and months, I can every week give a snippet of information. Look, let's just think about this. 2021 is here. 2020, most people are thinking, thank God that's over. Now we can face new 20 year. But can I say this? Please enter 2021 with caution. And I'll tell you why. If you haven't noticed already, landlords, the relief package that was there and the protection mechanisms that were in place, they're gone. The banks, the protection mechanisms that were in place, gone. The ATO have just put on nationally 1,200 collection staff. The banks have put on collection staff. And guess what? JobKeeper just dropped down to $1,000 and $650 or whatever the number is. Ian will tell you. The sheer reality of that is there's going to be more pressure on business to survive on their own. The biggest protection mechanism that is gone is the protection that directors had for insolvent trading. Let me just walk that down real slowly in bite-sized chunks for you. You could continue to incur debt during 2020 and know that if something went wrong, you wouldn't be personally liable for it, that additional debt that you incurred. As a famous Prime Minister said once, have a go. And the penalty wasn't going to be applied. Well, that ended on 31 December. That's finished. So now, if you can't pay all of your rent and the arrears as and when it falls due, if you can't pay all of your bank debt, if it's not already in a binding agreement, as and when it falls due, if you can't pay all of your current BAS and rent and tax obligations, if you can't pay all of your creditors as and when they fall due, that means all your suppliers, then every dollar you incur from January 1 onwards, you're personally at risk. So if you're sitting there in your home today watching this fantastic seminar, thinking, oh, geez, we've gone all right, we've survived, we've got the house, everything's fine. And let's just say, for example, you lose your biggest client or you lose your biggest supplier and you've got a stress on your business that creates a situation where you could have to restructure formally or you could have to liquidate through no fault of your own. the first thing the liquidator is going to be doing is knocking on your door saying, pay up, buddy, because you're exposed personally. How do we avoid this? We listen to fantastic advisors like we've got here on Business Insights. You get some really good accounting advice, financial advice, insurance advice from Bernard, and HR advice from Lisa. And of course, you can always get a fantastic business health check from Biz Doctor. But my point of this whole seminar today is you're on your own. No more protections. So please be careful. Please make sure you know what's going on. Please know what your break-even point is and how you can make sure that your business is moving forward in 2021, because the risks have just gone way higher. Happy 2021. Hope that gets your taste buds going. Looking forward to a great year.
Thanks very much, Adam. Very true. And in the last 2 weeks, I've seen more ATO collection activity that I saw from the entirety from March 2020 to the end of December 2020. So we might go to Sam Greshey now. Sam, how did the markets and interest rates finish up in 2020, and what can we expect for 2021?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I do re-echo exactly what's been said by Adam, that we do need to go into this year with very much a lot of caution, just to make sure that we are set for success, not for failure. So from an interest rate perspective, firstly, during the breaks, rates held reasonably steady across all the banks, with most variable rates for owner-occupier sitting at around that mid 2%. Fixed rates are still sitting at that just under 2% and just over 2%. Investment loans are slightly higher than that, 0.3 to 0.6%, although those numbers have, the differentials have started to come in a little bit. So we might see a bit more activity around the investment loans by the banks when the competition starts to really kick in. So the key themes for the first quarter for us will be obviously the February's RBA announcements to see how things are going at that particular point and what plans do they have for the year. As Adam mentioned, the loan deferrals will be coming off shortly. End of March is the last of those deferrals at this point in time. And of course, the updated ASIC and APRA advice about making sure that they're loosening the credit criteria for the lenders to lend. So obviously all those things are going to play a part in this particular quarter. We fielded many inquiries over the last month since we broke up about finance. I would have to say that about half of those, especially if it's a refinance, you could probably do something similar or slightly better with the same lender. You don't necessarily need to move. And obviously there are some who will benefit from a change because their existing lender will not come to the party. And of course, you can engage with us or with your own credit advisor to get that done. I do warn that there's one thing that's happening at the moment across many banks that is a real issue, and that is around service levels. So banks are pretty shocking at the moment about that. One major sitting at close to 25 days to pick up a file and look at it. So it's ridiculous from those perspectives. And a couple of other ones aren't that far behind. So I would be very careful of signing anything if you're purchasing that is unconditional, because there's definitely a risk around that. And of course, what goes with that, and you would have heard this, the property markets have showed some good resilience at the end of the year, very much unexpected compared to what everyone else thought might happen. And obviously at this point in time, there is an expectation that it will continue to surge through this year. It just goes to show that, you know, the net migration, stability in employment, which has been less certain, has had a lot less impact on the property market. Purely the interest rates have been driving the market as it stands right now, which obviously begs the question that when the rates do go up, what is going to happen to all these people who have overextended themselves based on these lower rates? Now, admittedly, there might be a few years down the track, but it is still a time bomb that, you know, might go off at some point. I'm still hearing that the rental markets for the houses are pretty strong at the moment. Units are not so much. They've been impacted a lot more. So investors will be impacted by the yields on those particular investments. I will provide more property info for you guys next week. Now, moving on to the markets, well, certainly the markets showed a lot of resilience throughout the issues in Europe, UK, and even the riots in US of recent times. Even the extra activity COVID-related in Australia hasn't dampened the markets here that much. So it seems to me as if we're becoming a bit tone deaf to COVID news now, and we've accepted that it's here to stay. It's a way of life, and obviously, if the vaccine works, great. But on the other side of that, if the vaccine doesn't work as well, then obviously we're going to see some more choppiness. Over the next 12 months, our market is still down about 5%, which is amazing compared to where it was back in March. US market is up 5%, and in particular, the tech-heavy NASDAQ, they're up about 38%. So obviously, the tech companies have done really well out of this particular issue that we have had. Now, at some point, the market will take a breather. So markets don't go up linear and continuously up. They will take a breather and they will come back down a bit. That might be after Biden has started. I guess time will tell exactly when that might be. Now, the good news is has not been for everyone though. So we've certainly seen some stocks that's performed well, and others have faltered. So it doesn't mean because the market's going up, everything goes up. So just be very mindful of that. Over this particular year in 2021, companies with exposure to foreign exchange, for example, and they'll probably be negatively impacted because our Australian dollar to US dollar has been appreciating, and that has an impact on how those companies that have overseas income, it gets counted here in Australia. Last year, the bank's dividends were cut as a result of APRA telling them to cut back on their dividends payout ratios to 50%, and that has been removed, so we might see a bit more bank activity this year. The China war hasn't gone away, and we'll have to watch that space as to what happens. Of course, the loser of all these things that's happening right now in particular are the people on basically term deposits or basically wanting to get some interest rates on their cash. A lot of self-funded retirees are in that boat. They need to take a lot more risk in order for them to make any money whatsoever. So if you want to take the pension that the government pays based on the current term deposit rates and so on, that's equivalent of over $2 million in term deposits just to get the same equivalent value of a pension, which obviously sounds ludicrous when you think of it from that perspective. Now, obviously, we'll wait and see what happens with the property market in this particular quarter as the agents get back into promoting a lot more properties. Overseas activities will have an impact. Loan deferrals finishing will have an impact. And as Adam said, the business moratorium coming to an end, that will certainly have a big impact on the small, medium enterprises across the country. So I'll be sure to keep you updated and provide you more information as to how we should position ourselves as we go through 2021. And that's the update for me this week.
Thanks very much, Sam. Once again, a fantastic summary from you. And I've already noticed a lot more activity on the property market in the last 2 weeks. So I think it's really going to ramp up there for 2021. Over to you, Lisa. So Lisa, what's the latest on the return to work practicalities?
Oh my goodness, so many changes. So as Sam said earlier, COVID is here to stay, and I think all organizations and businesses have just literally accepted that fact. And as we've known throughout the break, or the Christmas break, the upsurge in cases both in New South Wales and Victoria following that, a lot of major employers, we're talking about the big companies, are delaying the return to the office until Feb, amidst the state governments advising on border closures, CBD access changes, and always chopping and changing. So in New South Wales, as we know, the government's public health orders requiring companies to allow employees to work from home no longer applies. But the social distancing requirements mean that offices can really only be half full at any given time. So office spaces are still required to have signs explaining social distancing and limiting the number of staff per room. Some offering subsidized parking to ease the pressure on public transport. 50% of office workers in Victoria can return to work being required, not being required to wear masks indoors after 8 consecutive days of no COVID community transmission. But this was originally planned on the 11th of January. So here we are again, following changes. So just a bit of an update, so that our viewers and other small business owners can see what other major players are doing. CBA will be going to keep the hybrid model split between office and remote working, and that will remain through to February, pending no new health concerns. Flexibility and remote working will still obviously comply with physical distancing requirements. Telstra is taking a more cautious approach until the end of January. They will continue to enable flexible work conditions even after the restrictions are eased, so that staff, because they said that staff no longer want to spend Monday to Friday in a traditional office environment. So what they're planning to do is 2 days a week to collaborate, see customers, and connect with the team. Means that staff can come to work, to the office for 2 days a week, and then the rest they can stay at home. So there's a wide range of options that they're open and keen to offer to their employees. NAB, only business critical and frontline teams are working on site. Other major companies have said that they've adapted well to remote working model and will cut down on any corporate travel and in-person meetings regardless of any health advice. So this is where changes are becoming more permanent now. Medibank, for instance, said that flexible work conditions would be adopted permanently. The type of work, however, will determine the setting, whether it's at the office or at home, and whether or not they will be working from another location. So as businesses come into this new world order, basically in 2021, you really do need to rely on your HR leaders in business or the consultants that you use, because HR consultants and HR managers had to quickly become experts in public health and safety, because we help make decisions that could impact the lives of your team members, not just in an emotional way, but also in a professional way and in a physical safety perspective as well. So in an ever increasing, confusing and tumultuous work environment, you do need to focus on making your team members feel safe in their world of work. So please keep their best interests in mind, from a physical safety to a logistical health safety. Your decisions should always be guided by directions of the public health officials, who, as you know, base their decisions on science and data. And so your return to work plan has to be updated and created based on that. Working from home will definitely be an alternative moving forward. So employers, please accept that. Don't resist that. This is all about what your employees need and want. Be prepared to still continue on the hybrid model. Some workers are returning to the office. It's presenting risks for them, and there's an increasing tension even to talk about returning to work. But there's still a huge percentage that enjoy working from home options, and a larger group, in fact, who are fine doing it from home, but would appreciate the flexibility of a combination of both. So please bear that in mind as you prepare for 2021. As business owners and HR leaders, let's do our part. Let's keep focused on developing better skills to work with our teams, show some flexibility, adaptability, and very good communication skills with them, which also involves problem-solving abilities. Develop those skills in your teams if you haven't got them. We need to be more focused on creating our businesses to be more agile than ever now. So that's my word for the week. And every week I've decided in 2021, I will come up with a word. So this week, my word is agility. Good luck, everybody, in 2021. Seek some advice on your return to work plans, because it will continue to change. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That was absolutely brilliant advice there, and no better person in the industry to talk to about their HR needs than yourself. So what I might do now is I'm just going to give a little bit of a brief update on JobKeeper. So JobKeeper 2.0 extension 1, You still have until the 28th of January to make the declarations to be paid for the month of December via the ATO portal. Now, you might recall or know that normally the cutoff is the 14th day after the month, but because of the Christmas break, the ATO has allowed until the 28th of January for those payments to be made. So you still have time to log on to the ATO portal and get paid for December once you make those declarations. So we are now in the second phase of JobKeeper 2.0, which runs from the 4th of January 2021 to the 28th of March 2021. And you can still qualify for this new phase, even if you did not qualify for phase 1 of the extension. So in order to qualify, you will need to demonstrate that your turnover for the December 2020 quarter was 30% or more down on your turnover from the December 2019 quarter. And this is based on the method of how you prepare your business activity statements, of which there are two. There's the accruals method and the cash method. So that is how the test is determined. There are, of course, some alternative tests to this if you don't qualify through that method. And I'm going to be running through these alternative tests next week. Now, when you lodge your December BAS, the ATO is going to automatically run the calculation from their end and determine your eligibility. Now, December BASs aren't due until the 2nd of March 2021. However, the first round of payments, i.e. to be paid for the month of January, can be declared by the business from the 1st of February, and you will only have until the 14th of February. So they're not going to extend it until the 28th of February like they have done for January. So what do you need to do? You really need to get your BAS lodged by the end of the month to make sure that the ATO is satisfied that you qualify for this round of JobKeeper. Just a reminder that the payments now reduce from $1,200 to $1,000 per fortnight for tier 1, and from $750 to $650 for tier 2 employees. Now, tier 2 employees are those employees that did not work the 80 hours in the relevant assessment period. And I'm going to run through those in detail next week as well. So what's the key message here? Is that you need to determine if you qualify ASAP and put those figures into your cash flow. And ultimately what that is going to allow you to do is to know your numbers, which is what every small business really needs to know. They need to know their numbers. They need to be on top of them. So next week, I'm going to run through the alternative tests and those tier 1 and tier 2 tests again. So I might throw it over to the panel. Does anyone have any questions for anyone?
I've got a question for Sam. It might be a subject that he probably is scared of covering. I know I would be. The impact of the speculative nature and everyone getting scared about Bitcoin and those sorts of investments. There's just seemed to be some speculation about it over this last week, and it crashed. Maybe you can touch on that next week, Sam, if you don't mind. I'm not saying you're scared of it because you don't know what you're doing. I'm saying it's such a volatile sector of the investment portfolio.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to have a bit of a chat about it. We don't really cover off much on Bitcoin because of its very speculative nature. What I can tell you is that basically come about end of November, start of December, it was sitting at about $20, and it's almost doubled since November. But since then, it has had a number of mini crashes. So it certainly is, and that's, to your point, speculation around that is huge, and it does move considerably from in any given day. So I'll talk a bit more about that next week.
Thanks very much, Sam.
I actually had the reason why I raised it.
Sorry, Adam.
I was just going to say the reason why I raised it is I did a health check for someone this week that actually had it on their balance sheet, and they believed it was fully recoverable.
Okay.
Just went, oh,
I mean, certainly it's made everyone, well, it's proven everyone wrong. All the ones who thought it'll be here for a little while, wrong. It's proven many people who on blind faith have followed it right. So, so it certainly is a bit crazy. I mean, it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. And you know, there's other things in play as well. I'll talk about what the banks are doing in that space that might have an impact on these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have Adam. I want to actually ask if next week, would you be able to cover, you talk a lot about the cash flow impact more than ever now because of the safe harbor being lifted for businesses, right? And directors.
Yep.
Would you be able to cover next week some practical measures on how to improve cash flow? Maybe your top 5 tips on that.
Cover next week.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lisa, you just broke up there. Sorry, Lisa, you broke up there, so I didn't actually get your question.
Okay, I hope everybody heard me, the viewers heard me. I'd like to see whether you can cover your top 5 tips, I suppose, on better or how to improve cash flow for small to medium-sized businesses. Because I think unless they're getting these tips from their accountants like Ian, who are actively involved and in partnership with businesses, I'd hazard to say that most accountants aren't, right? So as business owners, viewers, I'm sure would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
No worries, I can do that.
No, thanks, Adam.
I've got a question for you, Adam, too. Just in relation to the moratorium finishing for bankruptcies, administration, and so on, at what point the January numbers will come out that, you know, we could have a look at, understand what has actually occurred? Because obviously those who've just made it past December and made a decision to, you know, shut up shop or are in a bit of trouble now, obviously they will get potentially recorded in January. But how long after January will we hear those stats about what that looks like?
The ASIC stats usually get released on the 21st of the month after the end of the previous month. So I've actually got a running tally of all of the external appointments for insolvencies for all of the months during the COVID, except for January, which typically will come out by next week. So hopefully I'll have that. And I can just give maybe a trend percentage of what's that about and how it's going. The interesting thing now is that with the end of the moratorium, and talking to a lot of my lawyer friends and barristers, that the queue at the winding up hearings will be quite lengthy, albeit that the physical court process is actually changed to an online process. So it'll be interesting dynamic to see how that all works. But all bets are off now. If you can't pay your debt and you get a creditor's statutory demand for payment, that's serious stuff, and they can wind you up, and they won't have to wait, because literally there is going to be no queue. There's going to be no physical court hearing as much as what there used to be, unless you're going to defend it. And then, of course, there's going to have to be an online process for that. But as when I say before, you're on your own. People are going to need to be really making sure that they're keeping a very close eye on their exposures with their creditors, particularly the bigger ones that are fully insured, because they will be wanting to make wind-ups happen so they can claim on their insurance, on their trade credit insurance. No one can get trade credit insurance at the moment. I'm sure Bernie can cover off that next week. Maybe that's a good segue. But for those who are relying on trade credit insurance to get paid for the monies that they're owed pre-COVID, wind-ups are mandatory.
Thanks very much, Adam. And maybe over the next coming weeks, you can give some examples of how you work with businesses to help them through these situations as well. That would be great. So it looks like we've got a few big weeks lined up. So I'd like to thank our panel: Sam Greshey from MoneyClip, Lisa Garrido from Midday HR, Adam Lyle from BizDoctor. Thank you, panelists and also viewers. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the 25th of January. And just a reminder that this video will be on our YouTube page, and it's also streamed live on Facebook, where you can go back and rewatch the episodes. So reach out to any of us if you have any questions, and thanks once again for joining us today.